Welcome to Interior Analysis. I'm Evan Westman,
I'm Jelani T. Kelly.
and we're joined again by Angel Michelli for this
What up?
episode that we're doing. Yeah, thanks for joining us. And today we're talking about Baby Driver, which is why, if you're watching the video version of this, I have these sunglasses on. But I'm going to take them off because I can't read my notes with them because they're polarized. So I'll just leave them on my head like this, so they're kind of here.
They were made in Antarctica?
Hmm?
You said they were...
Oh yeah, they're no, this is not on topic, but I should have worn these for the Mad Max episode because they're called Going to Valhalla Witness, and yes, there's a backstory where they are actually, but yeah, I got the. I'll spare the backstory of like how I got these, but they are quite cheap and they're pretty good. But yeah, I should have worn these for the Mad Max episode also.
Do they come with silver face paint?
I wish, but no. They were genuinely good glasses, though. I didn't just get them because nerd things. Anyway, Baby Driver. So I think this was the 5th time I've seen this. I saw it in theaters, and it's held up pretty solidly for me over the years. I think despite what I expected to talk about in this, I think we're going to end up being a bit negative with it, but I do want to stress that I really enjoy this movie. But let's get into your guys' reactions. So, Jelani, I want to start with you because you hadn't seen this before.
Nope. First time seeing this. It had been on my Netflix watch list for some time, but I knew we'd cover it at some point, so I wanted to wait until we had the episode scheduled. Sad to say, did not live up to expectations. I wanted to like it. I only heard good things about it, so I kind of expected to enjoy it more than I did. And my topic kind of breaks down why, or it's really asking why I didn't enjoy it. I was also a little disappointed that John Bernthal wasn't in it more. I thought we were going to see him at the beginning and then maybe with the crew for the third act. But we all know if it was him at the end instead of John Hamm, Baby wouldn't have made it out alive. Because for those who don't know, he plays Punisher. So that would have ended a lot differently. Also, I've never been to Atlanta, but from what I've heard about it, this is the whitest I've ever seen it.
I was kind of thinking that too. I also
That's
haven't
a very
been
good.
to
That's a
Atlanta.
very true point. Yeah.
That's everything. We'll talk more about it, obviously.
So I saw that. I also, like you, Evan, I saw this in theaters. I was doing a YouTube channel back then, and my friend and I went because I think we were gonna do a podcast on it. That I don't know if we ever made it, but we went to the theater to see it. It was a good time, just because like we both loved Edgar Wright movies before that, or at least like he'd loved them a lot, and I had gotten into them more the longer we'd been friends. And so I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like this is a different setting than I'm used to with him. Like it's in America. It's starring like mostly American actors, and like it'll be interesting to see that take on it. And I'm kind of with you guys on that. Especially I noticed it this past time watching it. Like this was maybe my 3rd time, and it was not exactly how I remembered. Not in that it was worse, but that it was messier than I remember. Because I remember when I was first watching it, and I think we'll definitely get into more of this with topics, but like structurally, like a little bit less organized chaos than I was expecting from Edgar Wright. Because he's really good at organized chaos. Like everything has a purpose, but crazy shit's happening all the time. And that's kind of what this is, but the purpose kind of feels all over the place, if that makes sense. Like
I agree with that.
It's fun conceptually. There's a lot of really good scenes. There's a lot of really fun characters. Like I don't think I'll ever have a bad time watching this, but I would definitely say that as far as like the structuring of a film, it's not doing anything particularly like new like I thought it would, and it's definitely not like I wouldn't use it as an example of like this is how you write this kind of movie. And again, I also want to emphasize, I do really like this movie. Like, it's a lot of fun, but I don't know that it's totally as up to par with, like, the rest of Edgar Wright's movies, if that makes sense. You know?
I think that's also why it didn't live up to expectations, because I had seen Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, and I like those movies, so I was expecting something as good as that from this.
Well, but you're also not a Scott Pilgrim fan, so maybe I don't I don't know where this falls closer to on the spectrum of like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim in terms of like I feel like it's probably actually less stylized than Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, for
I
sure.
don't know between the Cornetto trilogy and this like there's a lot of style in all of those movies.
Wait, why did I feel like I knew that Scott Pilgrim was Edgar Wright, but until you just said it, I forgot.
Yeah, I think it's one of those that like it's very easy to forget. I forget that Scott Pilgrim is him sometimes, but at the same time, like it still feels in some ways more like an Edgar Wright movie than this one does. Like I feel like the style itself with Edgar Wright movies is very contingent on the editing and the quips, and I feel like this has a lot more of the quips than it does of the editing because so much of the focus is on playing the scenes out to the music, but not all the time. Like that was kind of the sell of this movie when it was coming out, was that like this is going to be a whole movie that's sort of like synced up to music. And there's a couple of really good scenes like the opening scene that do that really well, and then there's other scenes where it kind of feels very surface level or like not totally focused on the way that it should for that to be the selling point of the movie. You know? Like I don't remember every single song that's in this, and I watched it again 2 days ago. But I remember like a couple of them. You know? Like it almost feels like the opening scene is a fantastic Edgar Wright short film. After that, it's like, you know, he made a movie after that to fill in the rest, you know, to add to it. And that's not a bad thing. Like a lot of movies do that. Like Smile was one that I really liked. And that's essentially what it was. Like the opening scene of the movie is the short film that the movie was based on.
Oh, the
And
trauma
then
demon.
yeah, the trauma demon thing. Yeah, and they expanded on it from there and created a whole feature after that. And for the most part, I think it works really well. So like that part of it, I think with this is okay, but it does feel like because of the nature of what he was trying to do with the music, it didn't carry throughout the entire film the whole time.
I'm sure there's like a really good like music video edit of this movie, a few out there.
I feel like
Yeah.
you couldn't even do that though because they already did it for you. Like
Yes,
it's
I'm
like,
saying condensed, like lengthwise, like a short film. Like you could,
Yeah.
there's stuff out there.
that. Okay, so you're saying like take out basically no plot, just like 7 music videos back to back. That you could be right about that.
That's very true. And I think that could work with a few of these. Like I think the opening scene, the tequila scene, like those work really well. And then I feel like there's one at the end. I feel like the one at the
I
end.
think the foot chase works really well.
The foot chase is good.
That's a fantastic foot chase.
The foot chase is really good. Yeah. I also I like the coffee scene, which is I guess it's the second scene.
Oh yeah,
So,
the
like,
long take.
Yeah,
I
yeah, the
hate
long
that.
where he's
I'm
like it
sorry.
starts off with the Baby Driver title card and shows like the building with the yellow lines going up. Like I like that a lot. That's really cool. And then like the whole thing is synced up and it's interesting.
It's shot well, but it did not. It did the opposite of sell me on Baby as the main character. Like I did not like him from that point, and we'll get to it in the topics. But he was cool at first. I was like, okay, kid can drive. Cool. What else do we know about him? Oh, he's a nuisance when he's walking. Great.
I would also be annoyed by him if I like walked by like the construction worker thing where he ducks under the wood. I was like, that's,
come on,
that's a
bro.
little
Have
obnoxious.
some etiquette, my friend.
I did hear that. I don't know what the name of that song is. I feel like within the past like month, I was just out walking and I heard somebody in their car playing that song, and I was like, there it is. It's the song from the.
Did
long
they
take.
drive the car under a construction beam?
No, but that would have been kind of sick.
I'm actually going to look up the songs in this movie to reference because I genuinely like I remember maybe 3 songs.
I used to have a whole bunch of them on my like main rotation, and then I've like gradually moved some of them off over the years. There's a few
Yeah.
that stick around. Bell Bottoms.
Bell Bottoms is good. It's a
so
fire
great.
playlist for the most part. It's just
It
like,
is.
but the whole point of the movie is like they were supposed to be used in a particular way, and they don't always get used in an interesting way. Like I feel like Easy Like Sunday Morning is a good example, where it just felt a little too on the nose, and it wasn't used in like an interesting enough way for the scene to make any sense.
I kind of liked that one. I feel like it matches
Which scene
vibe
was
of
that?
moment.
That's right after he's like quote unquote out, and it's like
Oh.
they're crushing the car in the junkyard or whatever.
Oh.
Yeah, like end of Act 1.
Yeah, and
I have things to say about that scene, and just I have a lot on like character motivation and plot in my topic.
Same.
And that
There's
touches
so much.
on that too.
There's some stuff to talk about with that. I think we should start with your topic, Jelani, but before we get to that, I think we should talk about, because you suggested that we talk about the music and editing, and we're already here.
Oh
So,
yeah, I guess we're already doing that.
Yeah, I hear you guys on some of it. Like, I think whether the song works for you or like any given scene works for you. There's some that are more impressive than others, and some where like the style is going a little harder. I still appreciate like some of the ones where they're not like super synced, but like it's not as stylized. It reminds me a little. I was thinking about Rocket Man a bit with this.
No.
I'm sorry, but yes, I think there's comparisons to make, because like there's some places where just like it's almost like a very basic just use of a soundtrack, where like you're picking a song that fits well for the vibe of this moment. And that's what I was thinking of with the Sunday Morning song. Like I feel like that just kind of hits that moment correct. Like it lets us in on what he's feeling right then, because he's silent. I think that's probably the biggest one. I also really like the inclusion of, partly because I just like this song, the Beck Deborah song, not the I forget the band for the other one, but there's the older one, and then I really like the Beck song Deborah, and like the one part that they play it in.
Is that the laundromat scene?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm biased because that song is just kind of fire in my book, but
it's good.
That's one that I've kept on my rotation. That's a really good song. In terms of the editing, like I feel like it's more than just editing. So I double checked, because this got nominated for film editing, sound editing, and sound mixing. I think since then they've just combined sound editing and sound mixing into one award for the Oscars. And I forgot about this, but it actually lost to Dunkirk on all three.
Yeah, it did.
Which,
Jesus.
I mean, Dunkirk's the much more like Oscar bait type movie, so I wasn't surprised at that.
Yeah, it's disappointing but unsurprising.
I think it's deserved. I know you guys don't like Dunkirk as much, so we won't rehash that. I was noticing this time it's so much more than just editing. Like there's so much stuff that's done in camera that's timed, or like camera moves and stuff that like this is what always impresses me about Edgar Wright, is just the amount of care he brings to every part of the filmmaking process. Like I've done a decent amount of editing to like royalty-free music for work, and you can still make stuff look pretty cool with that, and just like throw a lot of style in and like cut a lot on beats and stuff. It's really cool to see somebody take that approach at every like pre-production, production, post-production, and like see what you can do with that. And I think that's why this movie's always going to be enjoyable, because that's just firing on all cylinders in several scenes of this, even when it's not as loud as like Bell Bottoms at the beginning or Tequila at the one scene. So yeah, that was pretty much what I had to say on the editing, if you guys wanted to throw in more.
It wasn't too distracting for me whenever sound effects or dialogue synced with whatever song was playing. It wasn't all of the time, obviously, but there were parts that I did notice it. For the most part, I was just watching for the plot. I wasn't paying attention to the synced up anything, really. I nodded my head to lots of the songs, lots of good choices. I can't name any of them now, Like, I just watched the movie last night. I couldn't tell you. I think less than 12 hours ago, and I'm bad with song names. Also, I'm pretty sure it's illegal to wear earbuds / headphones when driving.
It is.
Cool.
I guarantee you're correct.
Cool reason to have him do that, but maybe he's not as ethical as we thought. He's a full-on criminal.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
it's the most
we'll
heinous
definitely get into that
crimes.
way more with my topic,
Yeah.
because that's kind of what my topic is.
Along
It's
with
like
hand-holding in public. Two worst
Oh, yeah.
crimes you can do.
handhold.
PDA.
How dare you be happy with your woman? What's wrong with
Disgusting.
you?
Disgusting.
How dare you have a girlfriend and be filled with joy? Ugh. Yeah.
What a menace.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you guys kind of covered a lot of my stuff with the music and editing. Like I said, when I heard about the movie at first, that was kind of what this movie was pitched as. Like, the whole movie is sort of, it's a heist movie that is like synced to music, is essentially what the whole thing was going to be, which you see showcased really well in like I said, the opening 2 scenes do it fairly well. Like, both show character, both show like the style of the movie really well, but then again, like, I think it's hard to fit that well over an entire film, even if you're Edgar Wright. Like, it's just very difficult, and it can get in the way of, like, I'll definitely get into this more with my topic too, but as far as like the shoehorning in of certain motivations to make things like the music or the other characters that they include, to make all that work, it feels like a situation where he tried to do both style and substance, but they're almost fighting each other. You know what I mean? Not like he doesn't have both, because he does, but it just, they're both competing half the time, it feels like, you know?
Like a
Yeah.
Zack Snyder film.
Like
I think it's not
yeah,
that egregious, but
it's
that's
not
a
that
bad
egregious, no, it's
comparison.
definitely
No,
not that
as bad, but as an
but
example.
on principle, yes.
It's a fair comparison, honestly, though. Like, I think Edgar Wright is better at a lot of other things that Zack Snyder isn't, but I think he can fall prey to some of the just, like, I want to do the thing that I like doing. You know, you can do it a little too much. There's a question of, like, a good marriage of, like, director and subject matter, and I feel like Scott Pilgrim is kind of that perfect marriage for Edgar Wright, where, like, I think the style he brings to that movie really elevates it. And it does here, too, in some cases. I don't think it elevates it all the time with this, though. There's a few places where it holds it back. And I want to rewatch The World's End, because I feel like there's kind of a tonal thing that kind of carries through a lot of Edgar Wright's movies, where he's like, I feel like you always think of his movies as really fun and, like, energetic, but a lot of them also get, like, kind of dark and sad at a few points. Like, I think you can do it sometimes in ways that still make it a fun experience. Like, just before I watched this movie a few nights ago, I told my roommate I was going to do it, and she was like, oh, I love Baby Driver, but the ending's so sad. And I was like, yeah, like, it's kind of a downer, but most of the movie's so fun. But even, like, Shaun of the Dead, I feel like Hot Fuzz doesn't do it quite as much, but
No.
Scott Pilgrim has it too, where, like, there's characters that are and The World's End goes really hard with, like, we're gonna be a fun movie, but by the end it's, like, pretty dark. The World's End gets, like,
No spoilers.
yeah, no spoilers, but, like, that
Yeah.
goes to some just, like, places you wouldn't think that, like, a just studio comedy movie would go. And it kind of, like, I don't know if it works. It's been a long time since I've seen it. But I think that happens here, too. And I'll talk about that in my topic as well.
I just wanted to clarify, I'm not saying Edgar Wright or Zack Snyder are bad directors. We were just comparing substance and what they like to focus on as far as their films. I enjoy both of films from both of them, obviously. I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like, I do think that there's a level of, there's a particular style they each go for, and there's a level of self-indulgence to it but that doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. Like, there's a lot of elements of Zack Snyder movies that I like a lot, and a lot of it is some of the self-indulgent stuff, you know? But then, like, Edgar Wright's the same. Like, so much of what makes his stuff alluring is not necessarily just the writing, it's also, like, the style.
I think it's largely the style, but I think he has shown that he's capable of, like, I think there are story problems with this movie. I think those are really the only problems with it. I think on other levels it's functioning very well. Like, it's incredibly impressive on other levels, but he still is doing some stuff. Like, I think he's showing good storytelling capabilities here in some ways. There are bumps that I have, and I'm sure we'll get into your guys as well. We don't need to make it a comparison. I think he has more storytelling chops than Zack Snyder. I think there's a lot of evidence for that.
Oh, 200% agree. Again, not trying to shit on Zack Snyder at all, but, like, I would say just, you can tell from Edgar Wright's, like, just the Cornetto trilogy alone.
He at least, I know you're going to disagree a bit on this for this movie specifically, Jelani, but Edgar Wright can actually write characters. I'm not sure if Zack Snyder can. If he can, I think he has yet to prove that to us.
No comment.
Okay.
I'm not gonna. I don't.
I'm also saying that in context of, like, there is stuff that Zack Snyder has directed and not written. So I don't have a perfect knowledge of that, but, like, I'm trying to keep in mind what he has had writing roles in for that.
There's a lot of cool moments, but each scene does flow forward. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a practice in, like, moments without any substance. Like,
yeah. It is efficient, I think. Did we want to get into your topic, Jelani, the unanswered questions?
Yeah, there was a lot of unanswered questions I had by the end of this. By the time I finished the movie, I was asking myself a lot of questions. Number one being why didn't I enjoy it? Then I just started listening to questions, and then I just made that a topic, because I think not having answers to these questions is what hurt my enjoyment. Yeah, the action was fun. I really just enjoyed the intro scene more than anything, because everything past that, I just had so many questions on. Like, why was that soldier guy so adamant about stopping these robbers? Like, he was chasing them like a GTA cop. What was that?
Like
just
a guard in Assassin's Creed 1.
Yeah, some random Good Samaritan barreling down
who has
the
a
highway.
shotgun in his car.
And an MP5. A submachine gun. Yeah, he's a soldier, but
I will stop you, Mike Myers.
He's a soldier, but I don't know. I don't even know if that's legal to carry in a car, let alone own.
No.
Well, probably. It's Atlanta, so I don't know. But
I also don't know that Atlanta feels like the place, though. I don't think Atlanta is like that. Like, it's in
Texas,
Georgia, but Texas. But Texas. I don't think Atlanta is that.
Okay, to give a little bit of textual defense to that guy, I think there might be an implication that, like, he's security. It doesn't explain, or, like, that maybe, like, somebody knew they were coming, and he's, like, there on purpose to stop them. I don't know that there is, like, solid proof of that, but I think it might be the implication that he's, like, he's a plant and, like, knows that the robbery's gonna happen.
So if he was a plant,
I'm not positive about that.
Why wouldn't he have backup? Why wouldn't there be more than one guy? Why is it just one guy in his blue Ford F-150?
I think there was more than one guy.
He's the
I think there's,
Punisher,
like, other
why.
security guys that came out.
They hired the Punisher.
From the place.
John Bernthal shows up.
Yeah, if it was John Bernthal, the movie would have been over.
Yeah, but I would have bought that, though.
Yeah, 100%. Nah, but the other guys that showed up were from the place they were. I don't even know what the place was that they were.
I think it was another bank.
Sure. There were security guys from there that showed up, and they got knocked out within the first 2 minutes of that chase. But that soldier, soldier chased them for miles with an MP5 and a. Did he have a shotgun? No.
I think it was Jamie. I was confused because Jamie
Foxx had the shotgun. Yeah,
which is the weapon I remember from that scene.
So that's unanswered. One, and we'll get into this in Angel's topic. I didn't care for Baby at all, whatsoever. First impressions are everything in movies and TV. It took several years for people to grow to like Jaime Lannister in his first introduction after pushing a kid out of a tower and paralyzing him. So with Baby, cool, he can drive, but my first thought once he was walking around was, who the hell does this? We already kind of talked about it a little bit. I think I would be visibly pissed off if I were to see that guy walking down the street. Like, bro, what are you doing?
You see that guy stumble into a coffee shop, you're like, I just want to fucking punch you. I don't know why.
What are you
feel
doing?
Like it would make my day.
It was just obnoxious. His head nodding and doing just the cringiest things you can think of while walking down it. It was like he knew he was in a movie. That's what it was. It was gross.
It
Well,
felt
he calls
like a
himself
music
Baby.
video.
To
Yeah.
strangers. Like,
His accent was kind of cool. I like the southern accent. Yeah. But other than that, Evan, you said it was like a music video. Yeah, that makes sense. But the chase scene was over. I don't know, man. I didn't care for it. I didn't care for it. Another question: who introduces themselves in a monologue like Debbie did? First of all, the way it was cut, maybe it's just because I was tired, but the way it was cut, it made me think. Okay, I saw Debbie go into the back, and then there's a waitress at his table, so I'm thinking that's somebody else than the girl he followed or came in after him, the one he was crushing on. Then I figured out in that same scene, honestly, that it was the same girl that went into the back, and I don't remember seeing her come out. It was like, okay, that's weird.
I think that's just Edgar Wright's style.
that's a style.
Because I think I know the shot you're talking about, and I think that's just the thing he likes to do.
Yeah, that confused me. She introduced herself in the monologue. That came off as strange. So by that point, I'm like, okay, two of the characters we know by this point are just don't come across as genuine people. They both feel like, it felt like theater characters more than anything, like over the top,
I can see that.
real, not based on real life. Obviously, there are more grounded plays and whatnot, but you get what I'm saying. Also, their flirting, in quotations, was not it. It was, oh god.
Oh yeah, I have a lot to say about that later. But yeah, agreed.
Jesus.
That was a bump
First-
for me this time, too. I think it may have bumped before, but it bumped more for me this time than on previous
It definitely
viewings.
bumps worse every time I see it.
Gosh.
Like, I have a huge issue with would feel like empty forced romances, and I feel like this is one that just kind of gets worse each time because you kind of you start to lose you kind of get it the first time why she's into him because he's the main character. It's Ansel
Right.
Elgort, I get it, but then
She
you
knows she's in a
gradually
movie,
start to
too.
lose the plot of that. Why is she this into him this quickly?
That's
You know?
And
another one
I
of
think
my
there's
issues.
work you could do. I think you could sell us on them better. There are moments where they have a bit of chemistry, but it's not there all the time. It's definitely not there enough. I think the backstory we have with her is decent. It's enough that we can see why maybe she might kind of be up to just run off with this guy she just met. She's like, there's not a whole lot keeping me here. Despite that they haven't known each other very long, but that is not enough, I think. It sells it a little, but then when people are getting shot in her coffee shop and he's leaving these weird cryptic messages, I'm like, nah, I think she would have noped out of this a while
These are red flags,
ago.
my girl.
These
You
are
gotta
big
go.
red flags. But I think you could do that. I think we could buy that a little better if in those earlier scenes there was a little more chemistry written in there. I think Lily James, I was noticing this time, is giving a pretty good performance there. Ansel Elgort's on sometimes and not others. I feel like he's actually kind of the weakest performance in this movie. I think you could have like, you don't have to add more scenes. I think you just got to make the ones that we have a little stronger. And maybe even, I was wondering if this would work better if you recast him as, like, maybe Andrew Garfield. I don't know if he's exactly the right guy, but I think
Maybe not him, but the same type of guy. I know what you mean.
yeah, somebody who's like a little more, because like especially in their intro scene, like there are some people who just have like a magnetic charisma, and I think Andrew Garfield is like that type of person. Or like maybe I'm saying this because I just rewatched Tenet. I think John David Washington is just a really charismatic person that like I can see just like anyone, even just as like if he's meeting someone as friends, I can see people like just hitting it off with him very quickly.
Oh yeah.
I don't think Ansel Elgort, as he performs in this movie, he's not that type of person. I think he's very specifically written not to be that type of person. So on later viewings, it does get to be kind of a hard sell.
Yeah, I would agree on that. In this movie,
More
because he does
questions.
have it in other films, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's got a charisma that I think is really well used in other things, but the writing has to be there, and I think in this, like, there's not enough to sell us on Baby as a character for Ansel to make it work, you know?
I think there's enough. It's just it's how he's coming off, like his personality. Like he is kind of awkward. I can see that it like that's an intentional thing. It does make like selling this love story this quickly a little hard.
Other questions. Why are the criminals one note? We have, well, I have a couple of personality traits, but for the most part, they are all one note. We have Buddy, who is crazy, horny, and angry. We have Darling, who is crazy and horny, and then we have Bats, who's just crazy and crazy. With us spending the latter half of the movie with them, I would expect to know or get to know more outside of their first names. Speaking of which, why did they share first names if Doc said to only keep to nicknames? Bats asked Darling what her name is within that same night of them meeting, and she answers almost immediately.
That is confusing. CinemaSins also pointed that out, like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yep. I don't like that I feel like the criminals could have really been my favorite part of the movie, but it just I don't think we were given enough on them. Like, there wasn't really anything funny they were saying or doing. They were just like angry the whole time, but quipping, but angry. It didn't really work. The only criminal that really did kind of work for me was Jamie Foxx, but that's because I like Jamie Foxx as an actor. So,
Yeah.
and I've seen him in a bunch of
All
things.
the actors are bringing it.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
It
but
helps. Their performances help, but yeah, there's a little bit to be desired in how they're written.
yes.
Yeah. Like, listen, John Hamm's character is a little thin, but John Hamm is fucking killing it.
Yeah, I have no
Right.
quarrel with how the actors bring across what they've been given for this, but as far as what we know about them and making them three-dimensional, nothing there for me. Why did Doc go with old crew members for the job of the third act if he said early in the film he never worked with the same people, excluding Baby?
I have an actual answer to that. I think what he means when he says I never work with the same crew twice is I think he says the exact same crew. So I don't think that means he works with a new person, like 3 new people for every job. It's he never has all the same people work together twice. So I think he's actually still holding to that.
I would agree, but I think that Baby looks surprised enough that they were back that it doesn't seem like you get a lot of repeats.
I'm willing to forgive that just so we have a consistent cast of people.
Yeah, no, I think it's fine. It's just like they could have then cut out the part where he said I never work with the same crew twice. Like, I get the whole Lucky Charm line, like I understand why it was there, but you could have had him
Yeah.
say it in a different way that would have just made that scene like less confusing. Like, it's not something you would notice, but it's because like the problem would then not have existed in the first place of like where it's a little confusing.
And also, like, why include John Hamm in... I'm gonna look up. Do you know the
Issa
actress's name?
Gonzalez.
Issa?
I
Or
think it's
Issa?
Issa, yeah.
Issa Gonzalez. Why have them in the beginning of the movie as the crew with John Bernthal? Like, what do we learn from them then that it's a surprise that they come back later?
That we want to watch Issa Gonzalez and John Hamm, I think. I think that's what I got from that.
Maybe. I think that's a fair point. Like, if they're like, you could just make those like that crew completely disposable, because the only one who really does anything in that scene, like right after that job, is John Bernthal, who never comes back.
Right.
Yeah. Odd choice
Odd
to
choice.
bring him in for essentially a cameo and then not have him come back.
That's why I said I wish this movie had more of them.
One moment with the criminals that I do like the minor characters, is the couple of points where Buddy is kind of like defending Baby a little bit, and is like, they're kind of like vibing and he's on his side. Like, that helps a little bit. I've also heard it broken down that like you can kind of view Buddy as like, I don't know exactly what like the character archetype or like role you would call this is, but like he's sort of like a vision of what Baby could turn into. I think you can kind of view him that way, as like somebody who maybe started out a little bit like where Baby is now and has like gone further down this road. And you kind of have the inverse of that with the 8-year-old kid Sam, who's like where Baby used to be. So does that really add anything? I think you could argue it doesn't, but I think there is sort of a utility to it.
Yeah, I would argue that it does. Like, I didn't think of it especially with the Sam thing, but I think the Sam thing actually works really well. Because that is almost definitely kind of where Baby started out, but he was by himself. You know, so he was vulnerable to Doc's sort of influence. Like, obviously Doc was holding the whole debt thing over his head, but then after that he was so pulled in that they kind of make it seem like he doesn't have a choice, but he does to an extent. Like, he could run away right away, and you know, it's very possible he would get away, but in a way he's in this because this is what he knows. And I think that you see that a lot in Sam, you know. But Sam, like, to him this is just so normal that it's just like kind of what he does now, as opposed to something that he's like experiencing, if I'm making sense in the words that I'm saying.
I think I kind of get you.
Yeah. Whereas John Hamm, I think he's kind of like that trope thing of like the criminal who's like probably hands down like one of the worst ones, just because of how he feels his motivations are so justified that him going nuts is sort of like an inevitable thing. Like, he's a time bomb. And, you know, knowing the trope, you can kind of see that. But they make it so that we let our guards down a little bit for a couple of reasons. For a meta reason, it's because it's John Hamm, an actor that we like, an actor that we have some degree of allure for, like, as far as like charm and charisma go. Our guards are already down just slightly, like, we want to like him. And then him being friendly with the main character and sort of bonding with him, and kind of also pushing back against the character who's a lot more explicitly an asshole to everybody, that's played by Jamie Foxx. Like, that character, having those two there, like, it kind of makes it so that it kind of is meant to set Buddy up as kind of that end villain in a way that I do think really does work.
For me, I didn't drop my guard with John Hamm. I haven't seen him. I think the only thing I remember seeing him in is one of the Black Mirror episodes. That was my introduction to him. So for me, I know he's a famous actor. Like, I haven't seen him in a whole lot. So for me, I didn't drop my guard around him. Like, when he's like connecting with Baby, I was off put by it, because the way he's playing it, to me, he comes across as just one of the thieves. Like, he's a villain. He could flip a switch at any point, which he does. And to me, in that scene where he's like listening to the song with Baby, I'm thinking he's gonna like throw the iPod down or something ridiculously evil any second. So none of that really worked for me. When Darling was saying the thing in the diner about he just sees red, I was like, oh, that's gonna come into play in the third act. That was just strange.
Fully.
And then Also, them talking in the car about killing bats after, and then saying it in front of baby. I don't know. There were just some really strange choices with the criminals that could have been spent making them less one note, in my opinion. Like, you got great actors to play these criminals, but I don't feel like they were used to their full potential.
I think they are giving it their best, though.
Yes,
There's
but
a little bit of thin writing in some places.
yes, they're giving it their best, but there could have been more done to make them not even just more memorable, but just better, more interesting characters.
Make us understand their motivations better. Because I think
Sure.
that's a big thing that comes into this whole thing is like the character motivation doesn't feel like it's there for any of the characters, which that's part of my topic, so I'll get more into that later also, which I feel like I'm saying about everything at this point. But it's like it's a big part of my topic, which is like the character motivation has to be there, and we don't need to know more about them. We just need to understand why they're doing the thing that they're doing presently. And I think that we don't necessarily, even with the little bits of hint of backstory that we don't get that sense with any of them. Like, even Buddy and Darling, who I would say we probably learn the most about backstory-wise.
Just Buddy. I don't even know why Darling's doing it with him.
Yeah, definitely mostly Buddy, which is, I do think it's sort of like the way the female characters are written in this is not necessarily great, which I think is a pretty common problem in movies in general. But I think in this, like, it's definitely highlighted more just in the way that Deborah and Darling are used.
And even his mom as, like, the backstory. Like, I don't
the
think
mom
it's...
thing.
It's not as bad as, like, some other, like... There's plenty of movies that you can point to as worse examples. There's a thinness to all the characters. I think there is more of a thinness to the female characters. I think Edgar Wright, from what I've heard, was also, like, he wrote this a long time before making it. I don't know how much extra writing process there was there, but I think that might have hit a little, like, as more normal in, say, I don't know, 2003 than 2017.
Yeah, I think he wrote this in the 90s, honestly.
I mean, given when the music's all from, I don't think we have anything later than that, so that might kind of scan.
Yeah,
And it feels like,
even change songs
technology-wise, I feel like it feels like it could have come out in 2003. Like, almost every music device in this is an iPod. I think there's one phone with, like, Spotify at one point, and that's it. Like, I think there's like, the dudes near the end who have a vape. And I feel like that's the one point in the movie where I feel like we're in 2017. This is kind of getting away from the point, but, like, yeah. And to say that, like, oh, it was written in the 90s, I feel like that's a little bit of a flimsy excuse for poorly written female characters. There's a precedent for that.
Other questions. How did Buddy escape the diner surrounded by cops when he was just shot and then shot a cop himself? They heard Baby's gun go off in the diner, and they surrounded the place, and then Buddy shoots a cop in the same diner, and he gets away in one of their cars. Okay. And then shows up to where Baby was going somehow. Yeah, how did he find him?
So the movie could happen?
Yeah.
It was in the script.
There's a couple of things like that, I think. Even just, like, I think the point that feels the most plot conveniency is when they stop at Bo's Diner. It's like, I can give it a pass, because, like, you kind of give a little bit of leeway for, like, one or two coincidences like that to happen in any given movie.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So, like, I kind of see it as just one of those.
I didn't really have a problem with that one.
Okay. I hear you a little bit on the John Hamm fast travel thing. Or, like, haha, here I am. I knew where you went.
Yeah.
He took the Spider-Man subway.
He took the Spider... Yes. Yeah, I kind of hear you on that.
I'm sorry, I just imagined a beaten up police car sitting on a subway train and then slowly rolling out as the doors open.
That's going to be a scene in the next Transformers movie. I guarantee it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a whole
Brought
other
to you
thing.
by John Hamm.
Why did this is a character question? Why did Doc decide to turn and help Baby in the end? The only thing indicating why this might happen is because he'd known him for so long. He mentions it twice in the movie, but with those scenes we got of Doc threatening the people Baby was attached to more than once, and so it's saying it's my job to know everything, and it didn't make me think, hey, this guy has a soft spot for Baby at any point in the movie. So the heel turn where he's just like, why do you expect me to help you? And then he gives him all of these tips. You got to keep on the road for 25 years. You keep running. Like, what?
Yeah,
You-
and then
you-
basically sacrifices himself to save him.
Right.
That's
You-
never worked for me.
You hold the threat of killing his loved ones over his head after he's paid. First of all, did they explain how he ever racked up that debt?
Yeah, he like steals one of Doc's cars.
Oh,
or
right,
did
right,
when he
right,
was,
With
like,
a whole bunch of
and he
merch
was-
in it.
Right,
Like-
the Mercedes or whatever.
So that's why he owes him so much.
Right, I forgot. They do explain that. After holding that debt over his head, and then saying, "Oh, you thought we were done? Nah, we're just getting started, or I'll kill your family." That doesn't make me think, I'll die for you, kid." What? No.
Yeah, no, not
sorry.
at all. If anything,
No.
that should have been the opposite. Like, it should have been like, we could
Right.
have easily assumed that that's what this character would be early on, because we hear him talk about he was in awe of, like, the balls the Baby had to steal his car this way, so he, like, let him do it, knowing that he would catch him, and then putting him in his debt. So, like, that scene could have been the moment where we see, like, listen, he doesn't have enough empathy or allure for anybody to not see them as somebody that he can use. But then they
Right,
turn
he's
back
using
on
his
that.
nephew. Like,
Exactly, but then they turn back on that at the end when he does help Baby simply because Baby shows up with his girlfriend, and
he was like,
he's
"I was,
"Hey,
oh,
have a
I
soft
was in
spot for
love
the kid."
once." Okay.
Yeah.
I
All
understand.
right.
It's never worked for me, and it also like ends up just not really mattering. Like I feel like it would have. I'm now starting to see like a potentially better ending. Kill John Hamm at the diner, and then the final confrontation is with Doc, and you can have some kind of like you can have that big action scene. Please make it a chase scene. Well, please end it with a good chase scene. Are we done with your topic, Jelani? Because this is kind of getting into mine.
No, I still have more questions.
Okay, let's go
Yep.
to yours then.
He's like, I have a book of questions. Let's go.
Yeah, I had a list full of questions. Yeah, I knew all the criminals had to die. The only thing that was unpredictable for me was whether or not Baby was gonna live. Did I care? No, but I didn't know whether he was going
But you
to. or
didn't
not.
know.
I thought Doc would be the final showdown, like the way these movies go. That's normally
Yeah.
how it happens. The ending, I'm fine with being. I guess it's not really open ended, but I just wrote a little open ended. With it coming into color, makes me think the 5 years were up, and we're basically seeing reality with Baby on parole. I had no problem with that, as far as that being an unanswered question. But that brings up another question, which we kind of already discussed. Why are they in love? In quotes. Again, we have like 2 to 3 date scenes with Baby and Debbie. They connected on songs and the open road, kissed twice, and all of a sudden she's willing to be a criminal with him. What?
Yeah, see, I think there's some pretty easy work you could, or I don't know if it's like easy, because like writing chemistry between characters takes a decent amount of work. You have to like build out 2 characters to do that. But you could like, I think it does need that. The scene I was noticing a little more this time is when they're at that like fancy restaurant. It just kind of shows them like swirling their wine, and I think they like put their fingers on the edge of the glass. I'm like, that feels like a couple in a commercial. That doesn't feel like characters. And the
Yeah.
visuals there are cool. Like there's some cool editing going on, and like the camera work is good. But that is not a substitute for chemistry. I don't know that the movie's like leaning on it. I think it's again just like Edgar Wright having some fun with his visuals. You don't have to get rid of that. Give us a little more with it. Like they have dialogue scenes, but I think you do just need to see them clicking more. it wouldn't take more runtime. It would just take another couple of passes with that intention. Like, write the scenes to just show them vibing.
That's another thing that came. It feels like some of their, well, especially in their intro scenes, some of their dialogue was improv. That's the way it came across, and I think that's also why it felt a little weird to me. Just a side note with that. But perhaps my biggest question, this is the last question. I know I've asked a lot of questions that have still gone unanswered, but why, after the years of baby driving for Doc, does he decide now to be a good person? I don't know if there was a history. We're not told or shown whether there's a history or not of him saving people throughout his entire criminal history, or saving people, or doing less violent actions. Yes, he's a good driver, but even if you were a violent person as a getaway driver, why would you want to like crash into people, for example? I'm mentioning this as a question because there's a shift in the movie once he's done. Like, it wasn't once he's done. It was the job, right? It was the job to get him done. Once he looks at the it was the second job. Once he looks at like the security guard that was knocked out or just dead, bleeding on the ground, and you see like they cut to him and he's like making a face of regret or whatever, and that starts like, I don't remember seeing that in the beginning, so it feels like it comes out of nowhere as far as him now realizing what he's doing is a bad thing. Like, people
defend
can
it
get
a
hurt.
little. There's like one shot in the opening scene, and I'm sure I didn't clock this the first time I saw it because, you know, you're just overwhelmed with the style of it. But there's a shot when the criminals are in the bank, when he's just jamming out to bell bottoms in his car, and I'm gonna do it because I have the glasses to show his look. He kind of like glances out the window and is like, "Here, I'll do it to the camera." He's like, and like you see him see into the bank, and they're like shooting off their shotguns. You can't really tell if anyone's getting hurt, but you can see he's kind of like, oh, some shit's going down. Let's just ignore that. Bell bottoms, yay.
The way right, but the way I read that, one, as you said, you can't tell if anybody's getting hurt. Two, I read that as him looking in to see what's going on. That's it. I didn't read into that as maybe this guy's a good guy deep down. No, that's not how I saw it.
I think it's a lot to get from that first time. Like, I definitely didn't pick that up until maybe third or fourth viewing.
It could also show a numbness to it too, if you think about it. Like, if he's looking in, but then the song is so alluring that he's immediately going back to it, it could almost be like that could make it even more like he doesn't have any empathy at this point. Like, he's so numb to it that, like, it almost doesn't matter. Like, the music is there to occupy his time until he needs to go. Like, yes, you could interpret it as, you know, he's using it to keep himself from having to think about it. But even then, like, either one I think is a little bit of a reach. Like, it's hard to gauge where he's at.
To that take, what about the second job of the movie makes it, him seeing that security guard lying in a pool of his own blood makes him think, maybe being a getaway driver for thieves maybe that's not a good thing to do.
Maybe GTA lied to me.
Yeah.
I don't really have a solid answer to your question specifically, Jelani. Like,
that's been most of the topic.
There is
not,
kind of
no offense.
Well, there's kind of a sense, and this might transition as well into Angel's topic. There's kind of a sense, I think, that maybe like he shouldn't be like just kind of noticing this for the first time. We don't know exactly how long it's been, but I think we can guess at least like 5 years that he's been doing this. And the sense that I always get with it is that, like, he's relatively okay with this happening as long as he's not the one doing it. And I think that's, like, kind of what you see in... I was going to kind of save this for Angel's point, but I think the way he drives is there's a decent amount of like character shown in that because he's very much avoiding collateral damage, and like he's just so good at driving that he can do that. And especially there's that great moment in the second job where he makes Bats miss his shot when
yeah.
they're like jammed under the truck. I really love that moment. I think it's such a character revealing choice, and it's just something else I really like about action movie characters is like when the action hero is good enough at their skill that they can like do things to reduce collateral damage instead of just like they're just really good at punching henchmen in the face. I think it's really cool when something like that can be part of a character's design.
I think I have 2 points to that. One was something I said earlier. If you're a good driver, why would you want to cause collateral damage? Like, they're in sedans. They're not in, like, tanks rolling through the city. Why would you want to crash? That would just slow your vehicle down. It would make no sense. So if you're that good at driving, as I said, even if you were violent, it wouldn't make any sense to, like, be pit maneuvering vehicles on the highway. 2, the guy's trying to kill him. The guy was trying to kill him. Why is he trying to be Batman in the moment? He wasn't the one pulling the trigger. He wasn't the that was going to cause the guy to die. It was he's doing crime. Like, why? I don't.
He is doing crime. So much crime.
Like,
Well,
it's a lot of
I
crime.
really like it because he's like, we can still get away from this guy, and like it's killing two birds with one stone. I can save this dude, and we're gonna get away.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's so good of a driver that he can do that.
He had the shot lined up, Evan.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I think it wouldn't be as egregious like these things we're pointing out as far as like him avoiding so much of this if it wasn't so integral to the final act. And I think we're definitely getting into this with my topic and with your topic, Evan, where
We
it's
can
like-
we can move into yours, Angel. If
Yeah,
you,
let's
go to
my
yours.
topic's
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
Okay, so my topic is it's the allure of the ethical criminal, which I think we all know is like a very popular thing in fiction nowadays. But I think it's a little bit, not even beyond that, but a little bit of a sidestep from that, where it's not even necessarily the allure of the ethical criminal, but the way that you get yourself on the side of criminals, because criminals are very common protagonists in all of fiction now. You know, so you've got like Breaking Bad, I think, is probably the go-to example, where Walter White is a bad guy. He's the bad guy the entire time, but we're on his side because we have like sympathy for him, just based on the way he was mistreated and the way his character's set up early on.
And it's from his perspective.
And it's from his perspective, which I think helps a lot. And that wouldn't necessarily work with a completely unlikable and irredeemable character, but we get likable and redeeming qualities about him beforehand. At the very least, you're going to have sympathy for the person he's set up to be early on. So I think that's something that you need, and a lot of that will come down to things like character motivation. So for Walter White, his character motivation is that he is dying, and with not really spoilers for Breaking Bad because it's the beginning of the show, it's the setup, but he's dying, and he wants to leave enough money for his family to be okay. And then, mild spoilers, eventually it kind of evolves beyond that, and it turns into he just likes it.
So,
You know?
Is it, because I don't know, are you saying like the main character? Or are you saying one of the main characters? Because there's an allure to villainous main characters like Homelander from The Boys, for example. He's not ethical in the
Well, I was
Yeah,
going to get
or
into
in the
that
middle
too.
of that spectrum, you have like a Han Solo, who's like not the protagonist, but he's kind of like the cool, like chaotic neutral or true neutral, like side character
Right.
that kind of
Yeah, well,
becomes everyone's favorite.
I think that's what makes this movie so interesting to at least look at, is that that's kind of what they're going for with all of them, because it's a whole thing full of criminals. It's a whole heist team or whatever. And what really feels like it's missing with all of them is that character motivation, because you've got the main protagonist who we're supposed to be rooting for, and then you've got these other characters who, at the very least, during the course of the movie, we're supposed to like enough to enjoy watching them. and have some level of at least understanding.
That's another point. What are we given if we're going to be spending half of the movie with these characters? What are we given to like them?
Exactly the
Are
problem.
we supposed to like them?
Exactly the problem. That's what I was going to get into. Was the fact is, like I was saying before, the most we learn about is Buddy. And even then, like, we don't really learn anything concrete about him, and we're still kind of seeing just that surface level of, like you said, he's crazy and horny and angry, and that's kind of his whole thing. And even then, like, we're not, like, we don't know, like, they kind of set it up to be like, we're gonna kind of get a hint of why he's doing this, what in his life makes him want to do this, and therefore makes him interesting enough to watch. And we don't get that with him. We get even less of that with Darling, because, as we said, the female characters are incredibly underwritten in this movie. Because if you think about it, there's two, and Lily James's character is also very underwritten, which also sucks because she's arguably the only morally morally right character in the movie, simply because she's not a criminal.
Well, what about
You know?
Joe?
Yeah,
Joe,
Joe.
I actually forgot about Joe. I was thinking about the female character specifically, but you're right. Joe also. But again, that also feels like, it feels almost like that kind of thing was shoehorned in as a way to make Baby more sympathetic, which I think is where a lot of the issues come in with how they're trying to sell these characters. Is so many things feel shoehorned in to set up the ending that Edgar Wright wanted. So especially with, like, as you see in the end, where, like, all of these different witnesses are saying, like, oh, he seemed like, like he cared, and, like, he gave me my purse back, or
He said,
tried
"I'm
to warn me
sorry."
away and let me go, and, like, it was a way of, like, showing, like, see, Baby was actually a good guy the whole time, and this is the checklist of how it's done. I think that it made it then feel upon, like, in retrospect, that all of those were just moments to set that up, as opposed to things that are actually part of Baby's personality. Because you see at the beginning, like, he kind of doesn't seem to have any issue with his criminal life, and we don't
Right.
have any indication that he's been trying to escape from it, except to get out of debt with Doc. But then he makes the choice to go back, and yes, obviously Doc threatened his family, or, the people he cares about, or whatever. But at the same time, I think that, he was also kind of feeling like, well, I'm just delivering pizzas, like, this isn't great,
Right.
Right, that does.
So it's
That's
like,
a weird beat where he seems like disappointed to be taking that. Like, what was his plan otherwise?
a
What were
little
you gonna-
bit, yeah. And I think it comes down to, like, structurally, it was an odd choice to not make the whole movie be about this kind of, like, well, I'm getting out of debt with Doc. No, by the end of the first act, I think, he is out of debt, and so he could really just walk away. And honestly, the first thing he should have done, if he really wanted to get away, was leave the city. Him and Joe could have gotten in the car, they could have taken Lily James with them, and they could have just gone somewhere else. And given how good of a driver he is, I feel like he could have gotten away from Doc, like, fairly easily. And he didn't do that. So there's an extent to which Baby isn't running from this life exactly. And yes, he has a problem with the morally insane things, like the fact that Bath just kills people whenever he wants, or that, honestly, Buddy and Darling kind of do the same thing. And, like, Darling herself, they just kind of portray as, like, very crazy in a way that, like, I don't necessarily love, because, like, it makes it so that it feels like there was no thought put into her character other than being, like, Buddy's girlfriend, who also is, like, pushing him to go even crazier. If anything, it seems like they tried to make Buddy seem more like he was hesitant about particular things, but we get no
Right.
indication of that from the ending, because then obviously she dies and then he just goes off the rails. And while that brings out what I think is the best performance in the movie, which is John Hamm losing his shit and just going, like, sweaty and nuts, and, like, I'm just gonna kill you. The level of which he is so calm and collected while also being completely unhinged at the same time is kind of what made me love him as an actor outside of Mad Men, which is kind of what I'd seen him in before that. It's really cool. But in the movie itself, it makes his character feel very thin, because it feels like anything that was there was just meant to set that up.
If you're not gonna make them likable outside of casting. At least make them funny. Like, I remember
I
laughing
think some
at...
of them are.
Yeah.
I think Jamie Foxx is. Maybe that's just Jamie Foxx being.
It was
him.
just Jamie
Like,
Foxx, dude.
I think he's excellent.
Yeah.
In this.
It was 100%
He's pretty good.
just Jamie Foxx.
He's pretty good. I like him.
'Cause-
He's pretty funny. I like Flea. Flea's pretty good in this.
I remember laughing at JD, Lanny June,
Yeah.
the Asian guy at the
Yeah.
job too, a lot.
Me
'cause he
and
was
my
just-
family quote the hats thing sometimes. Hat. Used to say hate, but I can really get jobs from that.
I forgot about
So I took out the E.
That's pretty
How
Or
that's-
the
how's
the
that
Mike
work out for
Myers,
you?
increase my
Doesn't
chance
like
of
hats.
employment.
the Mike Myers and Michael Myers confusion. That was great.
That's one of my favorite scenes. Honestly, it's so good. It's one of those that like they put it in the
This is
trailer,
from
but
Halloween
it
Store.
still holds up. It's cute, but that's what the more of the movie should have been. Like,
Yeah.
There's some great moments though. I meant to bring this up earlier. Like, this isn't really on topic, but there's a lot of moments in this that I was noticing this time that just like are a lot more entertaining than they need to be. You could just do this like generic scene or like generic moment, but he adds like a little bit in there. Like one of my favorite moments is Kevin Spacey like gives the backstory of like Baby stealing from him, and then he goes, "Wow, I just drew this whole map." While we
Oh,
had
yeah,
this
that was great.
conversation."
That was
It's pretty goddamn impressive. Just like,
that's a really good moment. I honestly had forgotten about that till I saw it again. I'm like, that's really funny.
All right, yeah. I'll give, but I think that's credit to the actors. Like, they made those moments really funny. Jamie Foxx a lot, but again, that's just I've seen Jamie Foxx a lot. He's one of my favorites. That's
and
just
so
him.
versatile. He's played like such a
Oh,
wide
yeah.
range of characters.
He was
Like
Electro
between,
in
even just
Amazing
between
Spider-Man
this
2.
He was
Electro, Collateral, and Soul.
He was-
like
Oh,
what
yeah,
a
Soul.
broad spectrum of like different types of people.
He was a vampire hunter in Day Shift. He was great in that too.
Ooh, I didn't see that yet.
I liked it. I enjoyed it. Dave Franco is also very funny in it. Action packed too. I think it's the same. What's it called? The same like choreographers of John Wick.
Oh,
Okay.
it's the Helsky Boys.
Yeah.
That's kind of That's interesting. Like, I'd love to, because that could work well in so many genres, especially like a vampire action movie.
Yeah, it was good.
Like, imagine them doing Blade, the film that will never get made, unfortunately, but
Jesus.
the one that we want. So
Somebody's signing on and then signing off the next day from the project every other day.
badly. It's getting crazy. Oh, anyway, I did want to jump back into because I wanted to talk about Baby more
Yeah.
specifically, about how like I understand what Edgar Wright wanted to go for with this character, but I think that again, like it's just the writing is a little too messy to put us on his side. So I think, like you were saying, Jelani, I agree with you that he's a little obnoxious early on, especially like that first scene's really cool, but then we don't really get a lot to get on his side except for like that little checklist. Like obviously he's got Joe. We learn a little bit about the stuff with his mom. Now he's got a pretty girl that he likes to talk to and stuff like that, who reminds him of his mom, which is weird, but more on that later.
Yeah,
The-
Oedipus complex.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which is it's very common, but the level to which they lean into it was a little much for me, especially on this go around. But again, I'll get into that later.
Bro, I was gonna heat up because I was gonna. When I first saw, I didn't think of Joe as his parent. I was just like, oh, so this is a all white Atlanta, and one of the only black characters we see in this movie, the main character is a white savior for. Okay,
This
that's
is
what we're
true.
doing.
That's a
That's what
very
we're
good
doing.
point.
And
I think
the
it's
other
meant to
one's
be his
Jamie
foster dad.
Foxx.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah, it's
meant-
his father. I learned later that it's
his
his foster dad.
dad,
That's
yeah.
when
But I think I learned that from
calmed down.
Wikipedia. I don't think that I learned that from the movie.
No, he says
itself.
it.
There's a line,
says
Which is another
there's a
thing
li-
that I
somebody
hate.
definitely says the word foster dad.
Okay, he
in
does.
there
Okay,
somewhere.
okay. Then
I think Baby calls him his foster
Yeah.
dad to Deborah at some point.
Then I must have missed that, because like as nice that is, like it's almost tacking on too many things. So like you've got the whole foster dad thing, right? But we don't learn anything about Joe as a character really, except that
yeah,
like he
that
cares
too.
about Baby, but he's upset that he's a criminal. Again, writing it as a very one note, very tropey thing. Then you've also got the stuff with his mom, which was only a little confusing because I kind of didn't understand at what point he lost his mom. I don't really remember if we learned how he lost his mom either.
It's the
Car
car
accident.
accident.
Oh, there was a car. Oh, yes, there was a car. Okay, so it was the tinnitus thing. Okay, that makes more sense. But I feel like, yeah, okay, that makes more sense. But I don't necessarily know like when that happened either, because we also learned like he was boosting cars as a kid. So was that when he was already in the foster system and he knew Joe, or was it before that?
I think that is left ambiguous.
It's a little
yeah.
ambiguous, and I think that again they're adding in so many different things to make us empathize with him and to get us on his side that they all kind of just muddle together a little bit too much.
They were layering it on thick because they didn't do enough in his intro for me.
Exactly. Yeah, they especially in that coffee shop scene too. Like that could have been a moment where we kind of see his personality come out more. Like even a little save the cat moment. Like maybe he picks up something that somebody drops, even a small thing, or like he gives a kid like a free something, like a piece of candy or something. Like he steals a lollipop and throws it to some kid or something like that. Like something a little dumb and on the nose maybe, but something that would have made me kind of understand who he was, other than like he drives really good and he does music. Like he almost feels like he would be a cool side character in a different movie.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah, I think a better approach maybe to just his like personality is like have him open up a lot more when he's around Deborah, because I think you can make I think a really understandable approach to him could be like he doesn't feel like he belongs with these criminals, like these aren't really his people, so he's like really quiet and doesn't really say anything and doesn't
somebody say that to him at some point? This isn't your world or something?
Yeah, well, I think it's said a few times.
Yeah.
But even like somebody says, you know, why they call him baby? Because we're waiting on his first word. So to me, that's like, okay, cool. Like if that's his thing, if he's just like, if he's only here because he needs to be, then like, yeah, I get why he's not trying to make friends with anyone. He doesn't like any of these people. But then when he meets Deborah and like finds somebody he does vibe with, show him opening up a lot more. Like if he's got this, like he makes his little mixtape things, like his beats, have him show her that. I think that's a really easy scene to add in, that just like, or have him just kind of like nerd out about it.
He
Like,
does
she
say
sees the tape
Have them
recorder.
be at his apartment or whatever. Like we never see her go to his place or anything, or like know where she lives even. Like, but if that was something like that she found and started playing, that would have been really interesting. But instead, we kind of see him mixing them on his own, which is like,
which is cool. Like I think
fine,
that's
but
a
it
nice
doesn't
little character
it's
thing.
cool
but
enough.
But also just like actually, I was writing. This is a little bit of a side note, but like I've been writing something recently that is pretty much just like it's effectively before sunrise, but disc golf. And
Ooh.
yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna keep it like that, but that's sort of where I'm going with it right now.
Please do, because
And
that
I've-
sounds so cool.
I don't know how much of the way through it I am, but I have kind of just been thinking I'm kind of not planning it out much, and I'm just kind of like trying to feel out these characters as I write them. And at several points, I'm just thinking like, I think we need to know more about this person. Like if I still actually don't know at the end, like if I want it to end with them being together or not. I'm kind of still feeling that out. But I've been thinking like, okay, if we are going to like have a chance to ship these people, I need to throw in more. Like they need to learn more about each other. We need to learn more about them. So I've been like, a lot of the challenges that have come up with this have just been like, who are these people? Who can they, like, what sides of themselves can they show to each other? I think we could have used like one more thing for Deborah, because it's a side plot. We don't need it to take up a lot of time. It doesn't take up a lot of time. I don't think it needs to take up more, but I think we needed like one more like personality trait, something like a little bit quirky about Deborah that like we could just throw in. It doesn't have to be like crazy quirky. She doesn't have to be Natalie Portman in Garden State. But like,
yeah.
Sorry, I saw that recently, and I think that's like a little too. That's an example of going too far in the other direction.
No, but
just
that's I understand what your comparison is. That makes some sense.
Yeah, but just like tell us one more thing about her and have like one more thing that they connect over. And I think a really easy thing is just have him show her his little mixtape deal. That's a thing you already threw in. They already like music with each other. You could be like, you're into that? Cool. I'm going to make a little thing that like have him remix the Deborah songs and like mash them up. I don't think that would be a good mashup just by nature of those two songs. But
I didn't like
No,
any of
but
it.
from
All
a
of his
character
mashups were
perspective.
trash. They were all trash. They weren't good. But yeah.
bro, listen to the Beck. Actually, I kind of like both of them. I like the Beck Deborah better. But listen to all that. It's kind of a sick song.
No, I meant his remixes.
Yeah, his
Oh.
remixes. I know what you meant. Yeah.
No.
They put the Was He Slow one on the album for this movie.
I did
Why?
like the Was He Slow one. But I think that
Oh,
other
gosh.
ones, like, they kind of play a couple other ones, and it's like they're just there to be there. You know what I mean? Like,
I
I
felt
get
like
it.
YouTube mixes, like YouTube remixing some funny news clip. Like that's the kind of vibe.
Yeah, like the Apparently Kid.
Maybe this is 2003, and this is before YouTube existed, and he's inventing YouTube mixes.
Yeah, maybe, I
would
mean,
be great,
the
actually.
state of the iPods might. There's a chance that it's like 2008, maybe. When
It's
YouTube was a very different
2000s
place.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, he's been stealing cars since he was a kid, so when he was a kid, iPods would have been a big thing. So I think he's
right.
just
He
stolen
gets
these
like
over
the
time.
first iPod, which I think is like '02 or something like that.
Why was it set for iPods? Maybe it's easier to explain because when did this release?
2017.
Yeah, maybe because to explain why he has I would guess this takes place in the 2000s. To explain why he has so many, I don't know, because you could just put all of that on a phone and it's the same effect. I think.
Yeah, but not if you want some nostalgia, though.
I think Edgar Wright kind of wrote this to be a little early because that is why like it's a really small moment, but it does. I think the moment that raises that question a little is when they steal the car from the guys and he's got the like very 2017 vape and his very 2017 phone playing Spotify from his Bluetooth speaker or whatever. Like it's a really small moment, but if you just take that out and make it slightly different, like we could believe that this is maybe 2009 and like nobody's using Spotify like that.
That's true. It could also be like a timeless sort of thing. Like, not timeless in the sense of like the themes or the way it's written, but timeless in the sense of like it could kind of be any time between like today and like, or today meaning 2017 and like, 2001, 2002. Like, it kind of doesn't matter what time period it is. What matters is like the effect that each of these little things has stylistically. So like the iPods are like, he's very old school. If you look at his mixes, all of them are on cassette tapes, right? Like something you can't play in pretty much any modern car ever. It's sort of that almost like sort of retro. He's almost like that sort of like retro vinyl kid type guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was kind of the point of him, which may
That's
actually
another
be a
strike
little bit
against
of what
him,
makes
honestly.
him feel sort of obnoxious-ish,
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
he feels almost like a hipster ad sometimes,
Yep.
and not all the time. Like, I think it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, I like the little things. Like, even going off what you were saying, Evan, about, like, giving Deborah another moment, maybe, like, it would have been cool if, like, Deborah was also like that, and that's why they vibed. And maybe, like, that's kind of what they have in common. Like, she not only finds the mixes, but, like, listens to them, immediately knows kind of what he's going for, and maybe makes, like, suggestions about, like, have you tried it like this? Maybe, like, kind of on the spot mixes a couple things up, too.
Yeah.
Just to add a little bit of layer and depth to her character that would also give them something in common other than they're both attractive people in a heist movie. Because that's another thing that I don't like about the way that, not just the way the female characters are written here, but the way that they tend to try to get you to empathize with the main character more, is to give them a love interest for the sake of giving them a love interest. Like, to give them something specific to fight for, which honestly, in this case, I don't necessarily think Baby even would have needed. You could have expanded Joe's character and had that kind of be the thing that he cared about.
Yeah, I think you need
You know?
somebody like other than him. Like he can't be a complete loner
Exactly.
because then Doc has nothing to put pressure on. But I think
Precisely.
you only really need Joe for that. You need one of them, not both.
One of
and I think
them.
it's
You
fi-
don't- you
I think it's
need
fine
both.
that you have both. Like I don't think that's a problem that you have both. But like
And even if to do the romance angle, you wanted to make sure it was Lily James, I think she's doing a great job in this. I think that would have been fine. But you would have then given more time to, like, have it be something more than, well, she has a nice voice, she's very pretty, she reminds me of my mom, and that's all I need in a woman, really, right? I mean, yeah,
and has
exactly.
good taste in music. That's like the four things about her. that
I don't even
were
know if
different.
she has good taste in music, to be
To
honest.
him,
'cause I don't
she
think
has
we
good
learn.
taste in music.
I think she's singing one song that he seems to like because he thinks she's pretty. I don't know that he even really likes the song. Maybe he does, but I don't know.
Dudes be doing that. Dudes will do that. And just like,
I mean,
oh,
fair.
Yeah, that's a great
I've done that.
song.
I've
Yeah.
done that. I feel like we all have. But it's
Yeah.
like
I
again,
can't say I
it
haven't.
makes everything feel again a little more service level, especially with the way that like it feels like she's written to be a love interest, but she's not written as an actual person.
None of them are.
And that's a big part of the problem, is surrounding everything with this one character and having everybody kind of be a tool for that, for a character who's also not really a character either. He's kind of an archetype, if you think about it, because we don't learn enough about him to really get on his side about much.
Yeah, and it's too bad
know?
because I think his like very base construction of like guy who is sick at driving and like time stuff to music, like that's just two cool things right there, and is like a very ethical criminal. Those are three really strong protagonist qualities.
Well, not for me, but
for
But
me,
they
that's
could be.
that's
The third
some
thing for me.
pretty good stuff.
They
I
could
think
be
it's-
if they're done right.
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 And I think those three elements are done right here. He just doesn't have much of a personality outside of that.
he has a southern accent.
yeah.
and
He
talks
does have a
really
southern
low.
accent.
And I kind of like his southern accent here too. It's like a little bit.
No, I
subtle,
like it.
It's not there.
I like his Han Solo vest jacket. I think that's cool.
I could do without that. But, like it's kind of funny at the one part where like he's making like the disguise in the mall and he grabs the sunglasses and it's like he feels like he needs like you could just lose the vest. You don't need another jacket.
But if you
on
lost
top of
if you
that.
lost sunglasses, it would have been a way better disguise.
Probably, like yeah.
Because he was wearing sunglasses before. You would be looking for a guy with sunglasses. They haven't seen your eyes, necessarily.
Well, he had one popped out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
in
but
that
they've
scene, he
seen
has
one
popped
eye. It's
out.
not the same, though. Like, I feel like that's a very specific look. It's like having a face tattoo.
Why didn't Jamie Foxx just shoot him when he accelerated?
Because Jamie
doesn't have
Foxx
time.
didn't have time. He didn't have time because he got
The
dead.
gun was to
Which
his
is
head
another
already.
Thing. Baby just straight up murders a guy. Something that
Okay.
he has shown he's
I did
not
want
going
to
to
talk
do.
about that though. Going back to your topic.
I moved.
I do like that when a positive, because we've been listing a lot of negatives of this movie and I still like it, and a positive that I have.
Yeah, we should list more
is-
positives, actually.
Nah.
I think we have. And Jelani doesn't have any positives.
Well,
but
me and
that's
Evan
okay.
have some positives.
I think we'll get to
I
this
know
by
that
the
much.
end. But I think a positive writing thing that this movie does is it presents Baby with a lot of choices, a lot of chances to do a more immoral or criminal thing, and he chooses not to. And I think that like there's some good stuff with that, and it pushes him to an extreme. Like it keeps pulling him back into this world, and he's like, I'm going like non-violent, nobody gets hurt, nobody gets hurt, nobody gets hurt. Now I'm at my limit, and now I will kill someone. And I like that it doesn't shy away from that, like the end of Batman Begins or something like that, or a Disney villain death, where it's like, oh, I didn't really kill him. He just fell off this broken cliff. He
Even
kills
though
bats.
John Hamm does fall to his death.
But yeah, I noticed that this time too. Is like he falls to his death, but Baby shoots him, and at that point, I think it's pretty fair to say we know he's been shooting to kill. That does not feel like a cop out death. He's not like, oh no, John Hamm, don't fall, like
Yeah.
Which is
I do
half
love
of
that
all
moment. He's like,
Disney
"Fuck you,
deaths.
buddy," and then he
you, buddy.
shoves him off, basically. Like he's blatantly killing him.
Yeah, and he straight up kills bats. Like that's
Yeah,
That's
even
murder.
more severely
That
than
felt
any
like
other
a Final
character, I would say.
Destination kill.
That
was
that is kind of a
bad.
Final Destination kill.
That was
you
bad.
mentioned it.
Back to my point. Why didn't he just pull? The gun was to his head. He could have just pulled the trigger and the car would have stopped.
He didn't have time. I don't know what to tell you.
He
doesn't
didn't have time.
I don't know.
He had enough time to accelerate to the point where the pole came through the windshield.
In real world logic, yes, Jelani, but not in movie logic. Not in the logic in which Baby had to survive so the end of the movie could happen.
Yeah, not in the logic of I'm gonna restart this song to time it properly with this heist.
That was kind of
Exactly.
funny.
I
It's
love
He
that.
needed to restart the song.
I gotta restart.
What?
Go.
And they were like, what? But
Yeah.
they were too dumbstruck to do anything but listen to what he said.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, now go. And they listened to him. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
I love that moment so much.
That was good. Yeah.
That's also a handicap that's never used, though, is the idea that, like, he needs to sync up to the song or, like, he'll mess something up. Like, that's a cool setup that is never really touched on again.
Yeah. Well, how much more do we have on your topic? Because that might transition us a little bit into mine.
I think there's a little bit. There's a little bit more in the
Okay.
sense of like, sort of just the way that the other character presented to. Because again, I think a lot of this comes down to character motivation. I think that the motivations for Baby especially shift around a little too much to the point where it almost seems like he doesn't really have one, because we get the sense that like, yeah, he's doing this to pay off a debt, but then he's doing it because, you know, half because Doc threatened his family, but also the other half because he kind of wants a better life, and he does kind of enjoy doing this, but he's also hesitant because he's seen them kill people and do bad shit. But then, like, you know, still that's more motivation than we get for the other characters, because again, the female characters are written to just play off male characters, essentially. Like, that's entirely what Darling is.
Oh,
Like,
this doesn't pass the Bechdel test, I don't think.
Nope. I don't
Most
think the
movies
Bechdel
don't.
test is... Yeah, I don't think the Bechdel test is actually that good of a test, because, like, Inception passes the Bechdel test on a technicality, but I don't feel
Ooh,
like
yeah.
in spirits that movie.
Evan doesn't like women. That's what he's saying.
doesn't like
I
Evan
should have
doesn't
seen
like
that
women.
coming from me.
Evan doesn't like
sorry.
women.
No, Angel, there is a long history of Jelani calling me out for being different
That's
forms
so.
of, like...
So there's a long history of your misogyny. That's good to know in case I come
Yeah.
back.
There's a long
I'll
there's
be
a long
prepared for that.
history of, like, I say something like I think it's like I was like, yeah, I kind of like Anne Hathaway's Catwoman a little better than Zoe Kravitz, and you're like, a racist.
Yeah.
What?
There is a long history.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. If I was on that episode, I probably would have sided with Jelani on that.
Yeah.
But-
I like Zoe
Yeah.
Kravitz as Catwoman too. She just doesn't
I-
have as good of a mask.
I definitely think Anne Hathaway gets a little too much flack for her Catwoman. I think her Catwoman was fine. I do think Zoe
Catwoman's
Kravitz is
great.
better, but I think again, a lot of that comes down to the writing. I do think Anne Hathaway's a good Catwoman.
Yeah.
That being
aside,
said,
Yeah.
this movie does not pass the Bechdel test.
no, it does
Yep.
not. No, it does
And
not.
Evan Hayes
And
was
again, that's
more
not always
on the
a good
technicality.
test.
No.
That's not always a good test, but I do think that it's something that, like, I didn't think about it while I was watching it, but that does not surprise me, because again, there's two female characters and they are simply written to play off whoever their male counterpart is. Like, Deborah's story is entirely based on Baby. Darling's is pretty much entirely based on Buddy.
Yeah, she has no
And-
agency.
She has no agency. She has no real personality outside of being, you know,
John Hamm's hot girlfriend.
hot and crazy, which I hate to even say because she has hints that she could be an interesting character. Like,
Right.
the fact that she is messed up enough in the head to be like, you know, she's kind of getting off on the fact that she wants Buddy to kill Bats. Like, she's kind of like setting it up. And yes, Bats is being an asshole, but like that in my head, I'm like, that's kind of interesting. I would love to then see more of her kind of taking control, because again, Buddy is showing some hesitation that she is not showing. So you wonder, like, how much of this is her manipulating Buddy, and how much of it is, you know, Buddy making his own choices. But they make very clear by the end that Buddy is just doing what he wants to do. He really isn't being manipulated.
And that scene
You
never
know.
matters.
She also died in the dumbest way possible.
She really did. I remember watching her death the other night when I was rewatching it. I'm like, I remember it being way cooler than this, and it was not.
Get
was
in the
just out
car.
of nowhere.
Just
Yeah,
get
what
in
are
the
you
car.
doing? This is the thing that criminals do in every movie, though, that I think is very stupid. Is like they just come out guns blazing, like not
Okay.
taking cover.
The shot of her with like the dual wielding machine guns is kind of sick though. Like
It's
Yes,
so cool.
but
and
it
her,
does-
like,
She not only
jacket
gets shot
is,
in the
like,
head,
kinda
but then
cool.
after she gets shot in the head and is dead as a result, she gets lit up by the cops after that. As if
Well,
to
that's
make
just
sure.
cops, dude.
She's not
That's
a
just
vampire.
That is 'cause
You
cops.
don't need to decimate her to make sure that she's dead. She's a regular person.
Yeah,
That's just
but
cops,
real
man.
life Atlanta police.
That's
Very
just,
true.
They're and
Police
even
in
like
general.
this wasn't happening at the time of that movie, but they're making like a whole police train. Like they're like over militarizing their police specifically there. from
This
what
is
I've
a good
heard.
point.
This
I
is-
I
yeah.
rescind
Not
my
at all what
previous
Edgar
point.
Wright's going for, but
Plus-
No, it's not. That's part of it. Is like it's clearly not his intention, but that is a good way to make it kind of make sense.
Plus, she wasn't white.
one thing you can say for this movie though, it is not propaganda. Like the cops are always the bad guys in this movie.
No, not at all.
Super like bad guys, but
Not explicitly, yeah. Like they're
Well,
never
there
seen as like
that one guy, the undercover one, he was weird. The one that came back at the end, I forget his name. The one
undercover
that
one.
the one that booked Bats before in like '98 or
Oh,
whatever.
oh the
but that was
the
a weird
butcher?
moment though.
No, the guy that worked for the butcher.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
the guy,
yeah.
the guy,
Yeah.
during the tequila scene,
Yes, okay, I remember
the
who
guy
you're
who's
talking
like,
about,
"Do I
yeah.
know you?" And then he's like,
He
"Yeah, he
comes back,
busted me
yeah.
back in '98."
Right, he kills
which
Doc.
at least shows, this movie takes place after 1998. We do know that.
Okay, yeah, there's a yeah. Have we met
But yeah,
before?
no, I
Well, you're still alive, so I guess we never met.
That shot didn't pass the rule of cool though, Evan. Yeah, it was. It was. I don't think it was as cool as you think. As you think
What, the
it was
dual
cool.
wielding darling?
Yeah, I don't think it. That was just a really stupid way to die.
it felt like a scene from a Machete movie, which is fine. That's fun.
I haven't seen Machete.
I haven't either.
I haven't either. I just know that I just know there's a lot of scenes like that with women holding up really big guns.
Nice.
I don't know,
It's
just
kinda like The
combination of
Punisher.
guns
It's like
and
everybody-
trench
it's like
coat is,
everybody's The
It's a
Punisher.
little Matrixy.
It's like everybody's the Punisher, but Machete is in it.
The way when they were walking or running away from the bank, and just like you said, with no cover, Angel, that I was expecting a bullet to just decimate him, just kill him at
Yeah.
any moment. I was
But that only
expecting
happened
them.
to one of them. Like Buddy was fine
Right.
until because Baby had to kill him at the end of the movie. And
Right.
Again, we're only talking negatives. I do love that whole. I do like that Buddy became the bad guy. Like I think it would have made slightly more sense for it to be Doc, but at the
Doc.
same time, I don't know that I would have bought it as much because like Buddy is like a physical force to be reckoned with. I feel like Doc was not that.
No, he couldn't even dive out of the way of the car.
No, there was no way. I do not think that would have hit as well. Also, I mean, knowing what we know now, I do not want. I will not wish for anything where I see more of Kevin Spacey in a movie. I cannot. I do not want
Yeah.
that at all.
I do like
So-
him as an actor, but yeah, I think this was like his last movie, pretty much, before
Well,
the stuff broke.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was his last movie because this was also around the time he got kicked off House of Cards.
Yeah.
But,
It was
yeah.
too bad because I remember when this movie came out, like I would have named him as one of my favorite actors because I was a big House of Cards fan at the time too. And then I
Yeah.
think like 3 months.
So
later
then you
or
Kevin
something-
spaced yourself from him.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, that unfortunately House of Cards was already kind of going downhill before he had to leave.
This is true.
But yeah, I feel like this movie is more like Kevin Spacey has played like so many villains that like knowing what we know, like honestly, because Ansel Elgort's done some shit as well that's come out, and I feel like
Oh, has he?
learning-
Oh,
I think he like had some like texts to a minor that were I don't know the details, but
Oh,
it's
I did hear about
I
that.
remember it came out like I want to say like 2020 or something, but I remember rewatching it after that, and I was like, like knowing that about Ansel Elgort makes this movie feel grosser because like you're not supposed to like Kevin Spacey in this, so like I can kind of that's kind of the thing. He plays like bad guys a lot, so I feel like
Yeah.
post cancellation, it's less of a problem for me, like, watching it.
And Baby Driver is kind of like, he's not prominent enough in this where I feel like where I didn't feel like it was as big of a deal watching this, because again, he's not the focus.
Yeah, and he's the bad guy.
You know, and he's the bad guy. You know, I don't love how they make him a little more sympathetic toward the end, but I think when they were making this, like, they didn't know what was going on with him, and I also, like, I don't think that they would have changed the ending anyway.
No.
Like, that's not something that I feel like Edgar Wright would do, you know? Like, obviously, and, like, they replaced him in All the Money in the World.
Right, but that came out after.
For these same reasons. But that, yeah, exactly, that came out after. Like, they refilmed everything with Christopher Plummer, but that was a different situation.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
Are we done with your topic? Because
I'm hungry.
Yeah, I think so. I think we can jump
Jelani
into...
needs to eat, so let's...
That's totally fair,
let's
yeah.
jump into
We've
my
gone
topic.
on many tangents again.
Well, I think we've stayed more on topic, with certainly more than the last episode. Anyway, So my topic is, does the third act work? I think we've talked about this a bit, and I think our consensus is going to kind of be that it doesn't. So we've covered a few things already. I've been tracking the past couple times I've watched this more of like the theme that this movie's going for, that it didn't really like make sense to me, or I didn't see it so much the first time. But there's always been kind of like just a disappointment at the end of this where I'm like, I just kind of wanted a little more than that. And some of it is as simple as the opening scene gives us a promise of, we're going to have some great car chases in this movie, sets us some cool music, and like we're going to do the Edgar Wright thing. And then the climax doesn't give us that. The rest of the movie does, and the climax is trying to be like just kind of this like pretty heavy brawl of just like, we're going to go pretty dark in this climactic scene. John Hamm's going to take away Baby's hearing, and then he doesn't even really get away. The more recent times watching this, I've realized there's kind of a theme that it's going for, of like, this dream that Baby is chasing is just a lot harder for him to achieve than he thought. And I kind of like that theme. I think it explores it pretty well, and the plot of the movie works to, like, if that's the theme Edgar Wright is exploring, good plot for that. It still kind of comes at the detriment of, like, but I wanted a fun climax. And I think you could have made those two things work better. And, like, that final shot, you have, like, the black and white dream that he has of, like, him going out to the 1950s car with Deborah in the 1950s outfit. And then you get that's, like, mirrored at the end when he's coming out of jail, and it fades into color as, like, okay, that was his dream, now he's achieved it, but there was a lot that happened along the way that he had to, like, fight through.
It would be the funniest thing if 5 minutes into their road trip they broke up.
Or the car crashes.
Like the 5 minutes, like the clear 5 minutes after, what's that movie? The Graduate?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like when they get to their bus stop, they're like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work out. Why the fuck did we do this?
I mean, we could turn around the church
I think I saw The Grad. That was
we saw it in
Dustin
Film
Hoffman.
History.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the movie that made it so that the ending where, like, they run off into the sunset or whatever, that's the movie that created that trope that they do at the end of all the rom-coms. But the thing is, that movie, the whole point of it was that the face they make at the very end, you understand that they now realize that there's going to be consequences to their lives afterwards, and it's not going to be riding off into the sunset. Every movie has now taken that part and just rolled with the sunset part without the reality part afterwards.
And that is why we have Shrek 2. That's my theory with it. That would be kind of hilarious if this movie ended like really that. Great. Just one other thing with that, and then I'll throw the question to you guys. I noticed this time there's a rainbow when he comes out. I think it's like the second to last shot of the movie when he's getting out of prison. As it's fading into color, there's a rainbow in the background, and it calls back to the postal worker quoting Dolly Parton, you can't have rainbows without a little rain, which is kind of like the theme this movie is doing. Like, he's got his rainbow at the end, but there was a hell of a lot of rain before.
There was a storm before. I get it.
Edgar Wright is very intentional with his callbacks. To me, that really says that, like, that is a theme he is really going for in this. And I think he's successful. This is a really rare case where I feel like I wish he was, like, somebody was less committed to theme and character arc. I usually feel like that should be a top priority. I'd kind of be happier with a cool climactic car chase with a, like, that is almost as good, if not better, than the Bell Bottoms opening.
Mm-hmm. I think it's... I'm not going to say it works. I like your idea better. I think it's fine the way it is. Like, I accept it the way it is, for as crazy as it gets. My eyes were still glued to the screen, and other than... I could predict all the criminals were going to die. Other than all of them getting clapped, I didn't know what was going to happen to Baby and Debbie. So I think that's what kept me glued to the screen. Like, are either one of them going to die or both of them going to die? Did I care? No. But car chase would have been better.
I feel like it's just kind of promised.
You're already like, I'm already like most of the way through this movie. Like, I don't care, but I'll just finish.
Yeah, you're
I should
committed.
see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, at that point. I mean, I also had to watch it for the episode.
This is true. So wait, would you have turned it off had you not had to do this?
I don't know if I would have gotten past the intro, honestly.
Damn. Oh,
Okay.
wow. Really? That bad?
That's why I did not like him from the start. The car chase, that I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about him walking through the city and doing all of that obnoxious stuff. I don't think you understand how much I disliked that. Because nobody does that.
I kind of get you on that.
Nobody
I
does
don't.
that.
I don't hate him like that, but you know, we've been kind of tearing into how he's not actually that compelling of a character. So, in some ways,
I might have come back to the film. I'm saying if I was watching it, if I was going to watch it on my own, like I had planned to before we planned to do this, I might have like stopped it and then come back to a later date. I've done that with a couple of films. But,
Watched it in like 7 parts.
yeah. Well, I'm not going to say that many, but yeah.
So how do you guys feel about just like, I guess I'm more talking about the ending than the third act, but like the decision
the third act
to
also.
Yeah, the decision to commit to like, because I do like the, in terms of like how the acts are separated in this, I think it's kind of a nice act structure of like, act 1 is, all right, this is supposed to be the end of my story. I'm getting out now, and here I'm gonna ride off into the rest of my life. And then act 2 is all of, no, you're staying in, and here's like more and more challenges to your ethical code of like, you want to get out of here without anyone getting hurt. And act 3 is, all right, screw that, I will hurt people to get out of this. I think that's kind of a nice act structure in terms of this theme that it's going for. And it is just kind of a, again, it's kind of that Edgar Wright thing of like the balance of the lighthearted tone and like, I just want to like jam out to my music and like I dream of getting away. There's like a lightness to that, but then a darkness to, you got to go to jail for 5 years.
At least
5 years. Like, I think it's implied that he gets out in 5, but it's like, we're going to sentence you to 25 years of jail.
It's about 5. But, like, I mean, even just for the way he killed bats.
Yeah, it's like, you're going to have to brutally murder 2 people.
That was a brutal Final Destination murder. That was the way that Batman would kill the Joker, quote-unquote, by accident.
What's the minimum sentence for murder?
I don't think that's what he's getting sentenced for, because I don't think anyone saw that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think that that's something they would pursue, but like, you know, for the, I mean, just for something like armed robbery, if somebody dies during an armed robbery that you're a part of, it's considered felony murder, which they charge as first degree, I believe.
Yeah, it's really unclear what he's getting charged for. So
yeah,
and also
but
Edgar Wright's
first
British.
degree is like a 25 to life thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not knocking like how this portrays like, you know, the accuracy of like.
We need a full courtroom scene.
We need a
quick
like
montage.
Like in
Yeah.
Daredevil, we need a courtroom subplot added in
Or
the director's
Miley's
cut.
Game, or The
Or the
Dark
cut
Knight.
pages of American Beauty.
No, please, no, not that.
Oh yeah,
Not
the
that.
cut. No, no, I know what you're talking about though. The
LFTS
the,
callback.
yes, our guys. Yeah. Anyway, do you guys think it's like? I'm gonna say I think it is very possible that you could have still explored this theme and given us a satisfying, fun climax like what the opening promises. I don't know if I can't really decide if I would think this is like the right movie for this kind of disillusionment arc. Like I feel like maybe it should belong somewhere else. On the other hand, if you are going to kind of explore that like contrast between like the dream that someone has and this like kind of fantasy they're hoping to live in versus like harder realities, this is kind of the perfect movie to do that with. Like it's almost like the Glass Onion thing where our experience kind of reflects the theme. I feel like it doesn't work quite as well here. So like
Yeah.
where do you guys stand on the like should he have committed to like it, do we like that he commits to the theme that he's going for a bit, and does it have to come at the expense of the like fun side of this movie?
I feel like you could have just lightened the tone a bit more than it, because it gets dark for the third act. I feel like a lighter tone, a little more, maybe not comedy, but I don't know if it. It's a good question because I don't know if it matches. I don't know if the funness of like a GTA 5-star cop chase scene for the final act would work with him just getting caught at the end. Like, what would be the point of it?
I don't know that it
Yeah.
has to be a car chase, but like it, because we see a number of other like action scenes of different kinds that are also cut to music. It could have been, I don't think we should have done another foot chase. It could have been another shootout or a hand-to-hand brawl. We haven't seen a hand-to-hand brawl set to music. That might have been cool.
Well, honestly,
Yes, but
I
he's
think what
never
they have-
displayed those skills.
Fair.
I think what they have as far as like his confrontation with John Hamm, like that's not strictly speaking a car chase, but they're in the parking structure, right? And they're like, they're kind of fighting with cars. I think that level of it works really well because it's still using the whole car thing. There's a little bit of the music stuff, but it's very like personal and gritty in a way that like the chases in the rest of the movie haven't necessarily been, which I think works because like the tone I don't think like jumps to being dark. I think it does gradually get darker.
Right, it's
And I
not
think
like
for the
that's
most
not
part,
there
that works.
earlier. There are plenty
Yeah.
of moments where it's kind of like hinted at, where we get a little bit of like hit,
Like when JD gets killed.
yeah, like that.
Yeah, exactly, like stuff like that. And so I think that level of it does work really well. And I actually really I like the idea of him giving up his freedom to like go do the right thing, basically. Like Deborah like can't go down with him, so he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna drag you down with me. I'm gonna like give myself up. And then we get the whole like the whole courtroom thing where people are indicating that like, yeah, like he's not a bad guy, he actually tried to help people, and like that clearly is like leading into him getting the lighter sentence.
I thought he was going to drive off the bridge.
That would have
kinda
been.
funny.
I think that would have been too. That would have been completely out of left field. I don't think that
That's
would
the
have
Fast and Furious ending.
That would have
that
been
is the
funny
fact-
to me.
The Fast and
Actually,
Furious
no.
ending.
Fast
no,
and Furious
is a
ending
big-
is the car somehow blitzes through all the cop cars, and then they
No,
the
jump
car
out
drives
into a
on the water.
helicopter. Oh,
The
that.
car drives on the water, or it
Okay,
surfaces
no,
in the
that's
middle of the
correct.
Atlantic Ocean, and like baby's
Yes.
fine, and he planned the whole thing.
And then he
that's the
holds a
Fast and Furious
torpedo.
ending.
He holds a torpedo in his hand.
I'm gonna call you Deborah Torpedo. That's what I'm gonna do.
I like
Yeah.
this ending.
We should rewrite the ending. It should just be that.
Where's the interior analysis cut?
I would
But-
like to see this movie recut. Like, just recast the Kevin Spacey and Ansel Elgort,
Yeah.
and like give Edgar Wright another pass at like a few parts of this. Like,
Yeah.
it's too bad. Like, my final point for this whole episode is just like, I still like this a lot. Like, just the fun of this does a ton for me. But it's a
Yeah.
4-star movie that feels like it could be a 5-star movie with just a few changes.
Exactly. It feels like Like, there's little things that you could change. Like, for example, we were talking about, the changing of the crew. I don't think that's necessary. I honestly think it would have been stronger had it been the same crew the entire time.
Yes.
If
Make
it had
more of a
been
relationship.
100%.
Jamie Foxx, Buddy, Darling, and you know what? If you even bring in John Bernthal too,
Please.
make him a bigger part of the movie. But I do feel like he brings a similar energy to Jamie Foxx, so I feel like they could step on each other's toes a little bit.
One of them would get killed off like halfway through the movie.
One of them would get killed off very early on, I think. And I think that, again, they would bounce off each other too much, but not in a good way, because, again, they're kind of playing similar roles, which is what makes it even weirder that John Bernthal did that early in the movie, and then he just wasn't around, and then Jamie Foxx played a crazier but also like very similar character in a lot of ways. But
I don't
if
even
you
know
make
why I
it
didn't even
one
think of
crew-
that. Just make it the
If you
same
make it
crew.
one crew, we can explore them, and we have time to get invested in them. Like, again, I liked JD,
And there's probably
I
a
liked
history
Flea.
between them and
But-
Baby that like could play into this.
Yeah, exactly. I think that had you focused it, it would have just made more sense. It would have worked better, with one crew. Because again, then you could have explored the characters. You could have shown like how they relate to the theme, and how they're like similar and different from Baby.
Like if you needed that fish out of, say he'd been working with the same crew for some time, if you needed that fish out of water character, they could have had the last job not go right. Like one of the people made a mistake, got himself killed, and now they have a new crew member they need to introduce Baby to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like at the beginning of
Which
the second
could be Jamie
act.
Fox. That
Yeah.
could be Jamie Fox easily, because he kind of
He's
is
like
a
the
new
replacement
character.
for JD or something like that. Like if JD
Yeah.
was part of the main crew, or even just like I feel like it's not too much of a stretch to just be like, all right, Doc is this crime boss, and like this is his core crew, but he's got a few like bench players that he calls up on occasion from the minor leagues or whatever.
Yeah.
Like if they need a safe cracker or something like that.
Or maybe even like John Bernthal is that same character in the beginning, but he doesn't die. Maybe he gets caught. And so then he can always come back later on in the film.
As an ally,
But then
or
that way they
something.
could be similar characters without stepping on each other's toes too much. Like they wouldn't be doing the same thing. Like, because that can work in some movies. Like, I feel like what was good about, like, Suicide Squad, for example, the newer one.
Oh,
is
I
that-
was about to say, oh my
I was
god.
about to
so,
say
like,
too.
Jesus.
I don't
Peacemaker
fucking
and
know.
Bloodsport are kind of doing the same thing, but they're doing it in a slightly different way, and they're competing with each other. I think there's a way to do that well, and you could have even done that with John Bernthal and Jamie Foxx here. But I feel like the way that each of their characters is written and the way the other characters are written, I feel like he would have just had them play the same character.
It would have been really funny to have like a righteous thief. I think like Peacemaker, his line saying, "I love peace so much, I'll kill every man, woman, and
kill
child I have to do to get it." I think it would have been really funny to have like a righteous thief. Like, do
He
you
is
know who we're
DC's
stealing
Anakin
from?
Skywalker.
Okay, I wouldn't go that far and call him.
You're not
that.
entirely wrong though.
Okay,
I'm not entirely wrong. I'm slightly wrong, as always, but I'm not entirely wrong.
But as we know, only a Sith deals in absolutes. So
Oh, shit. Well, Sith happens.
Sith happens.
I'll give you that. I've had a couple of those this episode, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you
Yeah.
you gotta have some kind of a pun with a movie called Baby Driver, where he doesn't drive
This is
any
true.
babies. False advertising.
Or there's no
actually-
child driving a car at any point.
Yeah.
This could be one of the tangents, actually. But I was talking to my sister about this movie yesterday, and I decided I want to write a prequel short film called Maybe Driver, where it's Baby taking his driver's test. And, like, obviously we who have seen the film know that Baby's going to pass his driver's test, but how the hell does he do that driving the way that he does? And I think that's great. And then it evolved into a weird thing where somehow it was Gandalf showing up out of nowhere being like, "You shall not pass."
Guys, thank
And-
you so much for watching. Evan, what's the boilerplate? Jesus.
I do want to hear more of this tangent, but if we're done with the
I will
topic,
tell you
we
about
should.
it later.
We
but
should
I think
because
I've-
Jelani needs to eat.
He does need to eat.
Okay, yeah. For the boilerplate, upcoming episodes. I don't have mine planned. Jelani, you said Edge of Tomorrow. is
Yeah,
one you wanna
yeah,
do.
why not?
I don't know if that'll be
Yeah.
next, but I'm down for that. So
It's
Edge of
up
Tomorrow
somewhere.
rules.
we'll do
it'll
that.
be-
We have our YouTube channel with video essays. We have our Patreon with watch-alongs and bonus episodes. We also have our Discord where you can suggest topics for us to discuss and suggest movies to do. But I want to start trying to poll fans for what topics they want us to cover a little more consistently. Our logo is by Kelsey Hendry. I'm on Letterboxd at ev_wes. Where are you guys?
Make sure you guys watch those video essays. A lot of work goes into those. I just watched, and not on our channel, obviously, but an hour and a half video, or listened to an hour and a half video on Sarah Hess and the House of the Dragon season 2. If anybody watches that, that was kind of wild. But I'm on Instagram at Jelani T Kelly, YouTube Jelani T Kelly. That's really it. Actors Access if you need me for a film.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess I agree. Watch video essays. They're great, especially these guys. They have a really good one. They have really good ones on, like, fairy tales and things like that too, which are great.
Well, gritty fairy
Love those.
tales.
Gritty fairy
yeah.
tales, exactly. Definitely go check that stuff out. I am on Instagram at AngelsArc15. I'm also on Letterboxd at Serenity Cinema. I have a YouTube that's also called Serenity Cinema that I have not used, but I may use in the future very soon. So we'll see.
Cool.
And cool. Thanks for having me on, guys. This
Yep.
is awesome.
Thanks for coming
Thanks,
back.
Angel, for stopping by.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Adios.